Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. Welcome back. We're East Coast Adventures. This is the Dirt and Vert podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Mike.
And we have special guest today, Kyle Kalbus, a very decorated ultra runner who's actually got into ultras just in the last few years, but already has a huge list of accomplishments and finishes. And we actually met Kyle at LC Enduro a few years ago, and Kyle's come a long way since then. But if you don't care, Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how you got into running.
Yeah, so I've been running 6 years or so. Actually started basically as a way to like get in shape and lose weight. Believe it or not, I actually started when I weighed over 300 pounds.
Oh wow!
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then just like you mentioned, we met at LC about 3 years ago. That was shortly after I moved down here from Wisconsin, and that was my first race down south, actually. So basically, since then, you've pretty much seen the progression from just kind of a casual runner into now just doing the ultra dream, I would say.
So when you moved down here, you said you did your first race. What kind of races had you done previously up north?
So I started with road running, like, the 5Ks, 10Ks, half, and even did a couple fulls. Then right before COVID, I did like my first like 50K. And so that was actually really fun. It was on like snowmobile trail. So like we basically had like yak tracks basically to poke through the ice. A little different than how you guys are used to here, but yeah, just on hard packed snow, and that was just so much fun. So
I'm thinking that you like the cold. The cold doesn't bother you?
It doesn't bother me, but I actually kind of like the heat now.
Oh yeah, it grows on you down here.
Yeah, so it looks like 2018 you did a marathon or a half marathon, and then moved into a 12-hour race and a 50K, and then 2021 is when we met you at LC, and looks like you finished 11th overall in that race, and much drastic, much more different runner now. So tell us a little bit about, that very first experience with LC, and then, what got you. You obviously had a huge progression. Yeah. So you ran LC, we were all there. We met you for the first time there, and, you were, kind of just there kind of doing your thing and, still fairly new to it, but where you're at now as far as a running athlete and an ultra endurance athlete is, you've achieved a much higher level at this point, and, your results speak volumes to that. So tell us a little bit about that race and what happened and what clicked, because obviously something changed.
Yeah. So, LC, Enduro, great race in the Chattanooga area. It's last runner standing format. So yeah. And if you're familiar with it, you guys are, but for those who aren't, it's a 2.5 mile loop. It has about 500 feet of elevation, and there's, a huge climb either way that you go. And so it really just tests you over time. Mm-hmm. And so when I moved here was not used to hills, and definitely that type of elevation, and then just not really knowing how to manage everything. So I was always like scrambling and chasing like hydration and like nutrition the whole time. And that really did me in, because I actually got pulled by the directors because I had, for lack of a better term, a reversal of fortune. And like it was just not fixable.
Oh wow. So that was the year I wasn't there, right? The first year.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you went the second year.
Yeah, correct? I went the second year.
The first year was when me, Mike, and Jacob went. because Jacob wasn't used to running hills, so he got he found out some.
That's definitely a great course to learn how to run hills.
Like you said, it's uphill both ways, literally. So.
Yeah, and for the everybody listening, the end of this race or loop either way is straight uphill. There is no running it. Like if you can try to run it, but if you've made it to this last part and you're already behind, chances are you're not going to finish the lap because it's straight uphill. And depending on which direction you go, one way is a lot of steps and stairs that's kind of winding up a hill with a rope that you use to help pull yourself up. So it's definitely a very hard race. It's a unique format for a last man standing. It's much different than your normal ones, which is what makes it so fun.
But they do a great job there with feeding you. You know, the first year that I went, the second year the first year I met Kyle, but the second year he did it, I was surprised by how much food they actually gave you during the race, which was, I mean, it's pretty great. I like them burritos and them hamburgers during the day. Hey.
Yeah, that first day is definitely a party, and then when the night hits, then it gets a little serious.
Yeah, I think that's when the rain comes in too.
So during this race, you make it looks like 35 miles. You obviously something clicked because you did a race basically every month after this. It looks like I'm seeing. So Elsie was in February. I see you did Bad Beard in March, Altamont Challenge in April, Scenic City in May, Chattanooga Mountain Stage Race June. I mean, you just month after month. So when you left Elsie, was there something that you decided, or was there a different type of training, or did you just finally say, I'm going to do this?
It definitely was clicking, I think, even before Elsie. It was just, I wanted to learn the trails, the environment, and just, get used to a whole different area and region, and doing it through races was like the easiest way. I mean, COVID was a weird time, so it was hard to find people to meet up with and, show you around and do trails with. So finding, local and regional races was kind of the easy way to do it.
Yeah, COVID was definitely an interesting year. That's actually when we started East Coast Adventures, because it took me like 2 years to talk Mike into starting East Coast Adventures.
And then we get Rona.
And then our very first race gets canceled because of COVID. So it was interesting start to East Coast Adventures. But you're right, it affected a lot of things that year, and I think a lot of people come out of the gate pretty heavy wanting to run races in 2021. Well, just tell us a little bit about, it looks like you did the Chattanooga Mountain Stage Race, which is that over a progression over 3 days?
Yeah. So, Chattanooga Stage Race, it's basically on, it used to be on the 3 different mountains, Lookout, Signal, and Raccoon, but they've moved Raccoon to the Cumberland Trail, just kind of like north of Signal, just a real beautiful area. But it's just a really great way to experience like the trails and some of the difficulty and a lot of the beauty that is just amazing. And now that they've moved it to October, I mean, the weather and scenery is just absolutely like beautiful.
Yeah, that's a perfect time of year for around here for that race.
Mm-hmm.
Did you struggle any in that race? It looks like you finished pretty well. Like stage 1, you were 6th place overall. Stage 2, 6th place overall, and then the 60 mile stage race, you were 4th overall. So you did a great job. I mean, you finished strong. Was there any low parts during that 3-day adventure?
Yeah, I would say the second day was really hard. Basically, when we're kind of crossing Suck Creek Road, there was a huge hornet's nest under the bridge, like 2 miles in. So there's just a group of like 6 of us just flying across the bridge. And literally, I got stung like about 4 or 5 times, like both ways, out and back. So
there's
like,
nothing that will make you run quicker than Yellow Jackets or
we were actually just talking about this earlier, like when we did our run in like August or something. me and David got lit up climbing a mountain. Like, we couldn't just run. Like, we were climbing, and we got lit up. And it definitely makes you rethink everything.
It's funny because we're going up a hill, and this is where we're wanting to put that race on at. So we're going up this hill, and Matt just starts like dancing and throwing his arms around, and I'm behind him, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And then all of a sudden they hit me, and I start running down the hill. He starts running up the hill, and then only a few minutes later, we're trying to figure out how we're going to meet in the middle.
Yeah, I'm hollering at him. I'm like, David, are you alive? Like, are you alive? Nothing. And then finally, I start hearing him. I'm like, dude, you all right? He goes, yeah. I'm like, you're not like, you can breathe? Like, you're good? Like, you're not allergic? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, okay.
So you get lit up by 4 hornets, and then you have to finish the race, obviously, and probably run the next day. So how did that work?
Yeah, so I had like 15 miles left that day, so that was not exactly fun. I think it was like 85, like 90 degrees like every day that year. So thankfully I pretty much got saved by, I would say, a couple legends like Rob Youngren and Elantra Moody I ran with like all weekend. And basically like they knew I was affected and I was pretty lightheaded from it, but they like made sure I wasn't like gonna like die and like and like, you know, and along the way they definitely taught me how to actually run trails here and not just go wide open. And just so when I first moved here, I used to be like the king of falling. And like so every like group run that I used to be a part of or any trail race, like the joke was the race didn't start until I fell down.
Well, we fall plenty with you, Kyle.
Yeah.
It doesn't. That's one thing I don't think I'll ever get past is not falling on a trail.
I think the first time that I paced David at the Georgia Jewel, it was at the end of the race, last 18 miles. But I think I picked him off the ground like 5 times, like just over and over. And he would just lay there. He'd just throw his arms up, and I'd grab his arms and I'd pull him up, and then there you go again. 5 minutes later, same thing.
Yeah, I need a pacer at Georgia Jewel just to pick me up. Well, okay, so now we got the Chattanooga Mountain Stage race. So you get stung. This is on day 2. You still got miles left. How did day 3 go then?
Day 3 was probably the easiest day. Just because it felt like more what I was just used to running. Like there were a lot of rolling type hills, but nothing that was super steep, technical climbing. It was a lot more open, kind of on like the Georgia side of Lookout Mountain. So, I think that was just the best part, was just not having to worry about that climbing aspect and just being able to run. And for those who've been to Lula Lake, like, I mean, it doesn't get any more scenic than that. Like if finishing basically going past that waterfall.
That's cool.
Well, how did you manage through the lows? Like, what were you trying to do?
Yeah, going through the lows, I just would kind of take it like 10 seconds at a time, take like a deep breath, count to 10, then, you know, just run. Or if I needed to count to 10 again, I just do that and just not worry about my position, my time, my pace, but just try and stay focused in that moment so that, you know, when I did recover, I was ready to go back and be back at full strength.
Yeah, because I'm sure when you if you were already in a low point anyways, and then, you know, you got hornets lighting you up as you're running, you're probably hating life at that point too. So, you know, I'm sure you were probably in a little bit in a pain cave. So is that kind of your strategy, is just kind of count, bring yourself back to present?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, definitely. Like, obviously, you know, when you are pushing that hard, like the pain is just inevitable. So it's just accepting it, moving on, and just try and staying in the moment and being present.
Nope. Good advice for everybody. So, I mean, we won't go through your whole list of races here, but I do want to bring up the next one that I see on here. But it looks like you did Strolling Jim, and you finished pretty well in that. 5 hours 43 minutes, 14th place overall. You did the 40 miler. Now, that is a pretty hot race as well. So how did you manage the heat in that race?
I think The first year I did it, yeah. I think we got really lucky with the weather that year. It was overcast and kind of cool with a little bit of drizzle. So I got.
Well, you did get lucky.
We did get pretty lucky on that. But there's nothing like training for it. One of my good friends, Stephen Thomas, he talked me into doing the race, and like he showed me the course, so I was prepared going into it. And just if you want to just be out in the Tennessee countryside and just mind your own business, like this is like the most like non-race race out there, I would say.
I've heard it's pretty hilly. Is that section pretty hilly?
Yeah, so it's a little about 3,200 feet over 41 miles.
Oh wow!
Mm-hmm.
And it's beat up asphalt. It's not smooth road.
I remember when we did Vol State, you run through there and you could see the markings on the actual road, or say this way or this way. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we got to run a small section.
Very small portion of it, but even that section, some of that wasn't very flat. It's kind of hilly there.
So it looks like you went, at this point you've done some timed events, some distance events, but it doesn't look like you've done a 100-miler at this point in your running career. When was your first 100 Pinhoti?
I had one DNF before the Pinhoti, actually. In July of that year. It's not an ultra sign up. I don't know why, but
yeah, okay.
Badger 100 is like a 100-mile flat rail trail, and you would think coming back to after spending like 6 months out here, with the hills, like, oh yeah, flat, it's easy. No, got caught in like a super hot day, and like they ran out of water at like aid stations, so
whoa.
Like the 100-mile and 100K, they went different directions. So like the 100-mile leaders just basically got stranded like with a reroute with like 15 miles without water.
Oh,
for
no.
like one stretch. It was rough.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that'd cut your race in half.
How far did you make it?
75 miles or so.
Ooh, man, I bet that was disheartening for all that to happen on your first 100-miler.
Yeah. So the funny part is I almost got talked into going like so when I got back to the aid station, I think you had a 36-hour cutoff to do this. So I had like 100K, so I had like a 50K left in like 22 hours. The race just like I didn't have anything planned for it, but it's just like, I mean, he's just like, you have 10 hours until cutoff to leave here. Like I got bussed in, so like my car wasn't there, but it's just like, if you can organize a ride or get it into 10 or take a nap, like you can finish. There's a special buckle they give you if you finish in over 30 hours.
Wow, you get a special buckle for finishing over 30 hours.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 times bigger. It's like really obnoxious.
That's awesome.
Oh, some people may do that just to get that big buckle.
So you're really fast, Kyle. Just looking at all your data and so forth like that. Do you think that plays to your? I mean, usually when I watch your races that are the past year that I've known you, I'm just like, Kyle's either going all the way or nothing. Do you think that plays to your advantage or disadvantage sometimes?
It's funny, me and Kyle have had this conversation. We both say that we're either all out or not.
Yeah.
So I want to hear this answer.
I was going to say, I've learned how to manage it to a certain degree, but
yeah.
I'm the type of person that just, if I'm in, I'm all in. Like it just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to I know how to strategize and manage it, but like it's that switch where I will literally go until I can't.
Yeah, and I respect that because I run very much similar. Obviously, we know, and I've seen you run, and I know how you run too. So sometimes it works to our advantage. Sometimes it doesn't, and we get rid of it.
I think we were all watching you. And I'm sure we'll get to this at Hots. I think we were all watching it. We saw your first numbers. I was like, man, he is rolling. I'm like, but this is typical Kyle. Kyle just likes to go.
Go.
So you DNF'd the 100-miler. Now, what year was that?
That was 2021. That was July of 2021.
Okay, so your next, it looks like when you finally hit 100, is actually in Little Dog's Backyard Ultra in 2022, and you win this race with 116 miles. So that's coming off of the win. Nope, you were second place. I'm sorry. You were second place at LC that year. So then you go to Little Dogs in your first place. You win it. That's your actual, I guess, your first official 100 miles, correct?
Yes.
And then it looks like you go and you take on the Pinhoti. And you finished 5th overall, 21 hours. So tell us. So, I know most people at this point, I've at least heard of a last man standing. So it's a little different than running a 100-mile race. When you run a last man standing, it's timed for you. You got an hour, you use that hour however you want. You're not going to run 100 miles faster than 24 hours. Doesn't work that way. That's as fast as you can run it. But Pinhoti, that's different. You've got to decide how fast you're going to run these 100 miles. And you ran it in 21 hours or something. So what was your strategy? What were you doing? And tell us a little bit about the race.
Yeah, so Pinhoti was really like the first time I felt confident about doing 100 miles. Got ahead a couple friends to help crew and pace me. So the biggest thing I was just worried about was how do I get through, and for people familiar with the course will know this, is that 18 to 45 stretch without your crew. I'm like, that first 18 miles, I'm just going to run what I'm comfortable doing. It's going to be real easy. I'm not going to push the tempo or heart rate. Just get ahead of that conga line at night just because I've spent time doing night running and I felt stronger than most people. So just get out and break out with maybe the first 10 people and just see what the day brings me. So yeah, the first 2 stops took extra time, making sure, adjusting my gear, getting all that done. And then that 18 to 45 turned out to be a really warm day, actually. I think it got up to 85.
Oh, yeah.
That's
warm.
And it was humid, too, because it was starting to rain in there. So, yeah.
You don't see many days like that in November.
But, yeah, so that was just a really interesting experience because the weather just changed a lot during that that afternoon into that evening. So I spent that first 45 just trying to get comfortable, and I definitely struggled getting through that just because it's the most technical and probably the most climb in that section. So once the weather cooled off, though, it just kind of played into my strengths. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Humidity died out, and at that point I just got really comfortable. I worked really hard getting my volume up to 70 miles a week and doing most of it, if not all of it, on trail. Even if it's runnable trails, just being on the actual trails and getting that vert in. And then,
what was the hardest part of that race for you? What'd you struggle the most with? Was it the knot or was it the terrain?
The terrain in the 18 to 45, when you get to what is that the high point right at mile 40? I'm forgetting, is it Rebecca Mountain or is it something else? I'm trying to remember.
I don't think any of us have ever actually ran this race. So
or Chiaha, sorry. Mount Chiaha.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was really hard, just because it's a real steep climb and you're really exposed out there. And they had.
Did you hit that during the day or during the night?
During the day.
Okay, so it's 80-something degrees and you're climbing up a mountain.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was either anywhere from about 55 to 80 degrees with wind and rain. And they still had some restrictions that year where they only allowed so many people right at the bottom of the mountain. And then there's a couple people that, depending on your bibs or when you registered, that you had to go an extra 3 miles down the logging road to meet your crew. So I think I ended up having to do the logging road. So I had to do the extra 3 miles to see them. So it was really 30 miles. I didn't see him until about mile 48.
I'm guessing that was a little disheartening.
And we planned for it. We knew that section wasn't too bad, so I wasn't too worried about it. I'm like, just get through the mountain through the day, and then the rest we'll just worry about when we get there.
What was your fueling strategy in this race?
Eat as much as I can. I mean, that was really the goal. Just trying to stick to real food. That's really kind of been a thing. Like, you can only do like gels and like, hydration stuff, all the supplements for so much, and then your stomach just kind of goes.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, did you learn that the hard way?
I've actually learned that this year. Like, I always kind of knew my stomach was a little sour, but like, I find out like when I'm running, like I have like gluten issues, so it's made fueling even harder now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you don't go with the Sour Patch Kids.
No, I can't do anything quite that hard. Maybe, Twizzlers, jelly beans. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I don't think I've ever tried jelly beans during a race.
I've tried the jelly bean energy ones.
the little bitty bag.
Yeah, I ate those in a couple races.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't seem to do
I'm
much.
still
For
the
me. They were
same thing.
supposed to be energy with caffeine.
Yeah.
I don't think there was caffeine in them because I didn't feel it. Or maybe it didn't have 400 to wake me up.
Could be caffeine tolerance there.
I don't think the 30 grams or 30 milligrams they had in it worked.
So about so you're almost a mile 50 at this point. How are you doing in the race overall?
I think I was hanging around 10th or 12th or so. I wasn't really too concerned. I just decided, like, we'll just get to my pacers and then we'll just kind of worry about it on the back half when it gets really runnable. From 55 on, there's a lot of really runnable sections down like logging roads and like, just like dirt bike roads. I'm just like, we'll make our time there. So kind of really spent the time through mile 55 with my first pacer, just kind of recovering and, fueling for the second half. And then the last 45 miles, we went to work. When we got to, I forget what the mountain is at mile 75, but I had a pacer from 55 to 75, and he ended up twisting his ankle like right at the base, like when you can start hearing the music, but you still have like 2 miles to go.
Ooh.
And I told him, I'm like, we're close enough to the aid station. I'm like, if you don't keep up, I'm just going to drop you at this point.
Well, I mean, you are in a race.
You gotta go.
I will give him credit. He did catch up to me about halfway up. So
But he probably didn't want to be alone out there.
Well, it looks like you kicked it into gear because you finished 5th overall. So you definitely picked it up those last 45 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Was you pushing pretty hard?
The last 25 definitely pushed. So you're probably I had Brandon Casteller pace me the last 25 miles. I know you're familiar with him, David. But great guy. He's done Pinhoti and other races, and he's race director out in Tuscaloosa area. So Patagonia Racing, if you want to check him out. He was ready to go. Like, he had the energy. He's just like, whatever you want to do. I'm just like, let's just kick it into gear. And I think we were about 15th leaving or so. And we did the last 25 miles, and I wish I could remember more of this because I really don't. It's a blur. We did the last 25 miles in just under 5 hours.
No,
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Especially, on tired legs already.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it makes a difference having a crew person or a pacer that is experienced,
Mm-hmm.
that can help guide you when you're having pains or when you're having stomach issues or anything. Just having someone there, because, when we're 75 miles into a race, our brain isn't always working the best. It's kind of like we grunt and move on. And
Mine's usually like, do you want this? Or somebody said, I'm like, no.
Mine's usually
No.
like, I'm ready to get out of here.
No. No. It's always no when you want food or hydration. You're like, no, I don't want anything. But when David's shoving it down your throat, I mean, you got to take it. So it is good.
I mean, that's definitely a game changer, having someone there that can help you, and see that, because we don't always see it.
Yeah.
And it's 70 miles in, you're tired. I mean, you don't even want water sometimes, but if you got someone there good that will crew you and help you, they'll bring you back.
Me and Mike definitely know about that from the Stinger.
It's a good conversation to have sometimes, because we can find ourselves on both sides of that, pacer versus no pacer. Sometimes you're like, sometimes I think we want that mental challenge of, I need to do this by myself. I need to prove it to myself. And then I remember my first couple just attempts at stuff and so forth like that. Me and David would just like, I can't do it if I don't have David, et cetera, and so forth like that. And he would get me through stuff, where I was like ready to quit. Like I said, it's the person there to think for you when you can't think, and then as you develop as an ultra runner, you're like, okay, I think I've got this now. Now I need to try the other side of it and see if I can think for myself. But, pacers are awesome, so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a game changer for all of us. And especially when you're doing your first couple of big races. I mean, just like you said, that's the biggest thing is if you don't have someone there to help you, trying to finish your first 100-miler is hard, because you're going to experience things you've probably never experienced before. And if you don't have someone there that's, rested and relaxed and understands and can see like the salt that's melting all over your face or whatever it is that's going on, to help guide you and get you back. So, you showing up with a crew is the best thing that you could have done for your 100-miler. Did you have a crew at that first 100-miler that you tried?
I had a crew person for aid stations, but no pacers. So, like, being out there, like, I think, anyone who, is well trained can do 50 miles, 100K, get through it just from perseverance and just kind of, experience from, but that mental fortitude, that, discipline, like, to be able to make it to that 100 miles, it's just a whole different animal. And that's pretty much where I fell apart.
It is. Yeah. The accountability.
Well, it looks like you enjoy these hot races, though, because it looks like you went and did Forgotten Florida 100. You also won Mad Backyard. So, you went from Pinhoti. You done, a couple more races. Cloudland Canyon, you got 3rd overall. Lookout Mountain, 50-miler, 6th overall. And now we're back into 2023. And in 2023, you just had a tremendous year. You do Mad Backyard in January, you win it. You do Forgotten Florida, you're 3rd overall. You do LC in February. So that's 3 races already in the first of the year. In LC, you win. Then me and you both go to Ohio. You did 166 miles there. Then you move on to 100K, Phoenix Trail Fest. Now, I've never heard of this race, but you finished 1st overall on it. So tell us what that is.
Yeah, so that's Brandon Casale. That was the first race that he put on.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's at Lake Lurleen. Yeah.
Patagonia?
Oh, Panorama.
Okay. Yeah. Panorama races. Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he does like all this work for this camp at Lake Lurleen. It's beautiful out there. The trails are well groomed. He actually put a huge gong out in the middle of this with like a hammer.
That's awesome. Did you have to hit it when you got to a certain point?
Yeah. So every lap was about 12.5 miles or so. So every time you got to this gong, you had to go hit it, and you can hear it like halfway across this campground.
Man, that is accountability. I like that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you don't hit the gong, that lap don't count. That's so cool. That's cool looking. Okay, so then you move on to Grand Veduta. You got 3rd place in it. You go back to Strolling Jim. 10th place in it, Quest for the Crest. And now let's talk about your PR for the backyard. So you go to Capital because Ohio was not cold enough for you. So, you know, you were still craving more backyards. So Capital, you go 216 miles, your fifth place overall. Tell us a little bit about that race. You know, Capital is it's a pretty well known backyard ultra. I mean, you have to be, you know, pretty accomplished already, at least, you know, 100 plus miles to be able to get into this race in a backyard. So tell us a little bit about it and how you fared and what, you know, how you finished up there. What took you out?
Yeah, so Capital Backyard, yeah, it's located just outside of Washington, D.C. in Lawrence, Virginia. It's kind of held at like this little kind of park area. It's set up real nice. There's like a nice trail loop, kind of not too technical with some hills, and then the night is literally on like a sidewalk just across the street. So it's really well put together. Like you said, it's pretty much like invite only, I would say, behind, you know, Biggs. This is probably the next biggest one, or at least in the U.S., I would say.
Yeah, it's a fairly large backyard. It's there's only a couple of them in the U.S. that draw this much attention, and I think it's a silver coin, right?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a silver ticket one, and I think it's been the only one to play at larges like the last 2 years, I think, for the World Championships. So yeah, based on my performance in Ohio, I put in, I requested, you know, at entry, and knew someone who knew the race director, and so I reached out to them, and you know, about a week later I got an invite, so took the opportunity and went for it. You know, figured one last shot. I'm like, if the weather's decent, I'm like, who knows how far I can go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you 216 miles is pretty far. Tell us about this last loop. What happened?
So going out for 49, I ended up twisting my ankle pretty bad.
Is this where the start of that ankle problem happened?
Maybe. I think it's been my right foot and ankle took me out in Ohio too. It took me out ultimately at Capital. I mean, I think I've healed it, but this is completely different that I've been dealing with this fall.
Okay, I just knew that. I think it was in August. You did you break it or sprain it really bad at Caney Creek or Caney Fork? Sorry.
Yeah, Caney Fork. I sprained it really bad. I'm still dealing with it now, actually, just a little bit. So,
do you think Capital was the start of that though, or no?
No.
Okay.
I did a 100-miler after that, and there was no issues.
Oh yeah, I see that. You sure did.
Well, he came right after Capital. He came down to the 1776, and
yep, won it.
He ran pretty good there.
Yeah.
So you twist your ankle on that last loop. Did you know you were out, or were you still trying to push through?
No, I was trying to push through. I knew 60 yards was a lock, and we're at 49. So I had the other runners who dropped out just taping everything, getting me meds, like anything we can think of, just throwing the kitchen sink at it.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of carefully get through like 50, 51, pretty much, on a sprained ankle. 52 was rough. I think I got through that with like 2 minutes to go, and we just retaped it. We just put on like a different pair of socks just to kind of cover it up a little better. And just knowing like that third day I had to run the course different. Like I had to run the flats and pretty much just power hike anything technical that involves any turning. So I just tried hitting my splits, and about 3/4 of a mile in, like I'm off the pace.
Yeah.
Like even the other 4 runners were starting to drop me, and I can just feel just everything fall apart, and I just called before I did anything worse.
Well, that's still impressive,
Yeah.
man. I mean, 216 miles. So you've timed out on what, your 53?
Yeah.
Yeah, a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about what you've done in just a few years. You've started ultras. I mean, that's amazing. And to already be at 216 miles, I mean, I think you're gonna try to double that this year.
I might need to here if I want to compete with anything here.
Yeah.
I know Harvey Lewis. He keeps raising the bar here.
Yeah, they all keep raising the bar, it seems like. Just when you think you get a chance, you got your hopes up, like, I can probably do 200 or something. Like, 300 is the new normal now.
Yeah.
You know.
Realistically, I think for the U.S. team, I think it's going to take 300 this year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kyle, your farthest before this was 166, right? How did it feel with 200 miles, other than your ankle being messed up? How did it feel with 200 miles on your body? With the sleep and the nutrition and all that. How did that feel?
I was just really tired. That was about it. So I didn't really have as much as Capital provides aid and support. I didn't have a dedicated crew there, but I had random people just kind of helping me. Usually it's kind of like a different person every hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the hardest part was, I didn't get those mental breaks between the yards, which you can get through. It's not too tough, but at the same time, it was easier just being out there running than it was like coming back, because I felt like that's when I was doing more work, was like getting ready for the next one. And especially,
and I'm sure you didn't have to worry about frozen water jugs, in this one, because one of the things about Ohio is, me and Kyle roll up, and it's not bad the day before the race. It's cold, but the day of the race, it ended up snowing. I think we got it started sleeting. There was hail at one point. At night, I think it was like 15 degrees with the wind chill. It was 8. And at one point we look over and there's a guy in leather chaps dancing on the side of the road. And that was all he was wearing, was leather chaps with Christmas lights. You remember that?
I remember that.
Cold. We were all so cold and so tired. No one said a word. We just laughed and kept running. But do you remember that, Kyle?
I remember. The amazing part is he came back on and did it again night 2.
Wow. Hey, y'all were his entertainment for the weekend.
Well, he definitely made us laugh, but that's the thing, is like, for you to have such a good race, it's more than just running. It's also the stress and the emotion and the things leading into the race and going into the race. And like Ohio, for me, and I think even a little bit for you, but I don't do well in the cold at all. But for you seem to be managing the cold okay, but then you had to start dealing with the other things because you didn't have a crew. So literally one time Kyle come back and he had no water because all of his water jugs had froze up. So Mary's got them in there trying to thaw them out at the fire pit. To go 200, 300, 400 miles, it's more than just the running.
Mm-hmm.
The things have to go right around you. You got to kind of be not so much at peace, but not a lot of stress. You can't have, your jugs freezing up or someone there not to help, take care of you, because putting together days at a time, it all has to click, you know, and it sounds like you at least made a step towards that at Capital. So what do you feel like was the difference to go from 160-ish to 200? Do you think you did anything better?
I was a lot better mentally prepared. Just understanding what the long game really was. And I think Ohio, I got a taste of it, but ultimately the weather won.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So yeah, if you look at the results, like it was, I think I went out after 40. Was it Tara Dower went out at 41, like Jennifer Russo at 42, and Dan Uvicin at 43. Like we all just fried.
I mean, it was some rough weather. Like it really was. It was a hard race. The weather was terrible, and I don't do good at cold, so I'll take heat any day over that. So you probably won't see me back in Ohio running the backyard ultra there. I'm going to choose a different one this coming year. When you say more mentally prepared, so do you think it was really just knowing that I'm going to be here a while? Do you think that was the difference?
Exactly. Like I knew what to expect, kind of getting through that, like, you know, that first wave and then the second wave. It's kind of like, you know, doing Little Dog and Mad. It was kind of like you get through the first wave and you're at the end game. Like you only have a handful of people left. Ohio was different. Like you got through the first wave and then there's like a huge feeling out process before that you even get to the end game. And I would say Ohio and Capel, I didn't even do that. Like I was there, and then pretty much the end game started when I dropped.
Well, I got a feeling you're going to do even better in 2024 because it looks like you're already signed up for Capitol and for Ohio next year.
And Mad.
And Mad.
And Elsie.
Looks like you're craving some backyard last man standing races. So
I definitely want to give it one more shot to see where this goes, and two, to see how far I can get. Like I physically have broken myself, but I haven't mentally cracked yet.
Yeah, I think that's the draw for me. Some on there is like you want to find that point to where you truly can't go on, and I haven't found that yet. I've had races, like these backyards where that's the bad part, is it just takes one bad lap.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that you couldn't have went, if you'd have fixed that one lap, you couldn't have went another 100 miles, and it's trying to fix that one lap. So for me, I don't feel like I've hit that, not even close to the point of like being mentally just done or physically. So that's my draw. And it sounds like that's kind of yours too, Kyle. It's just like, where is that breaking point? Like, where do you get to? And, I think that's kind of what we're all trying to find a little bit, is where's that limit?
Oh yeah. Like when I did Mad at the beginning of the year, that was my first official backyard with that format. And, that was the first time I didn't sleep all night. Like I hadn't slept, and it, like, my mind was great. And, seeing with you and Melody and, who else was that? Me, you, Melody, and Frank. Yes. The guy from up north, like you guys were awesome during that. And, seeing everybody going out, and we all talked. But what took me out of that race was my knee. It wasn't my mind. It wasn't like, I couldn't mentally go. Like my knee swelled up where I couldn't even move it. So, but like you said, you're searching for that mental part. Where's the mental part going to shut me down? And in that race at Mad, it wasn't the mental, it was the body. It broke. But, that is something that even like Mid-State Mile, I want to see how far I can really go. And I love Mid-State Mile with that format. So it's something we're all searching for.
I think Mid-State's different to some aspect. I think it really is tough on the body.
It's very tough.
I think you really want to go in your mind. I think it's a body. It's a physical race. It is a very physical race. You'll see people just, you can see it and they want to keep going, but it's just like Mid-State's like, you're not going. You're not going. We're not going. You just, it's so funny. It's just
with doing LC and Mid-State. LC, for some reason, seems harder. Like, I love the heat, and Mid-State doesn't really bother me with the heat. But LC, I can't get past 55 miles.
Well, I think the difference with LC, though, is I feel like you're crunched a little bit more for time. I mean, think about it. You got 20 minutes to run 1 mile at Mid-State. You got what, 40 minutes to run?
2.5, and it's a changing course.
I mean,
you can't pattern it out and set your
pushing
split.
It's pushing.
You don't have as much time to fail, or to have a bad loop. You have one bad loop at Elsie, and it's hard to overcome it because you've got to run up that hill.
and there's a hill in the middle.
Yeah,
so I mean
it's hard, and I mean that's one of my favorite last man standings. I think is Elsie. I just think it's different. You know, Mid State's right there with it. I think those two are just kind of unique.
They are.
You know,
that's the draw to those two right there. Is that weirdness where it's a different time frame other than the traditional backyard, and you got a lot more elevation. Both of those are very, you're climbing. You're not just running on, like Mad is very repetitive where you can get in that flow state and you don't have nothing to change it up. You just, go. You walk a lot when you find your spots. But Mid-State and Elsie, there's no flow state. It's climbing down.
Well, and Elsie's got a ton of like switchbacks and turns, and I mean it's not an easy 2.45 mile loop. It's got a lot of turns and twists, and I mean you're going to go uphill in the middle of it. You run that big loop in the center,
and the weather.
Yeah,
that rain will mess all the flats up. The flats aren't runnable at that point. It's ice skating.
You bring up a lot of good. Yeah, Elsie and Mid-State, like you have to hit your marks at certain intervals.
Yes.
Like, and that you have to pick it up in certain points, and like, was it in 2022 when I took second? I don't know. You might have remembered this, David, but like it started raining really heavy.
Oh yeah.
And was it Lucian and I think we went about 5 hours, just one on like final two. The bottom got so flooded because the dam got barricaded. Like we were in probably a foot of standing water in parts of the flats. And we're just sludging through, like we're running the tops. Like that top portion, like the switchbacks and the big hills, like we have to run that to make time.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're running those hills, it's going to wear you out even quickly.
I remember that's the first time I really saw Kyle. Was we were climbing up them hills, like we'd been running for a long time anyway, and you see these people, but once it starts narrowing down, you start seeing that same person that you got 5 or 6 people of, and that's the first time I really noticed Kyle. He was those big long legs climbing up that middle section, and he's just looking at us as everybody's run a little faster than him, and he's like, man, I'm gonna be out here a while. And that was the year that you got second with Lucian. But
well, and to finish off your if your ultrasound results, we can't go through all of them because you have 56 races. So, but we skimmed through, and you ended 2023. It was you and Chris Stamen at the Barn Creek Backyard Ultra. You two were the last 2 men up there in the race. You took second. It looks like you're ready to roll for 2024 with plenty of races. But there's one race on here that we've not talked about that Mike's already alluded to. And, we kind of want to hear this story. So we know you signed up for HOTS, and man, when you sent it that first day, you sent it. So tell us about this race. Tell us what happened.
Can I say this before you start, Kyle? That we had signed up and done Vol State. So, of course, all this we were really taking in this year. So our eyes were on you when you signed
we were
up
watching
for this. So he's like, we're watching you. So
what's Kyle going to do in that race that we're about to do? What's he doing?
It's all yours, sir.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So Heart of the South or HOTS. It's one of the last kind of road races. It's the way that they kind of put it is like Vol State is kind of like, if you kind of look at it like graduate, like college tiers, like that's like your bachelor's. HOTS is like your master's, and the third circle of hell is like your PhD. Just to give you that. And so I signed up for the lotteries of both and got into like Heart of the South right away. And so that was going to be kind of like my A race this past summer, and then the backyards happened, so I have 2 weeks to turn around from Capital, where like my foot, my ankle, and calf are just swollen. It looks like a watermelon, like my whole right foot. And so there was no wait list. So I was like, well, you can't get like the partial refund and drop. So I'm like, well, we'll see how this goes. So I did like just a couple road runs. So I was just like, well, the swelling's going down. I can walk on it. I can kind of run. We'll just go with it. And so, yeah, for those not familiar, basically you get on a bus with Laz and you don't know where the start is.
That always makes it interesting every year to see where this race is.
Oh yeah, you're like, where are they starting at this time?
Where are they going?
Yeah.
So it was funny. Me and a couple friends, I put my live tracker on my cell phone. So I'm like, if you guys really want an idea of where we're going, you can follow this. And so the funny part is he took us like the day before to like the archaeology site just outside like Johnson City.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like our field trip. We actually get to see like excavation digs.
Oh, that's
and like,
cool.
Yeah, it was actually really awesome seeing some of the fossils. But we get to the hotel and he tells us, "Oh yeah, by the way, we still have a 2-hour drive to do tomorrow morning.
Oh, wow.
We'll give you the maps after dinner." So everyone's just like so confused, seeing like, well, where are they? Like you're just in Johnson City, like what's going on? Like thinking it's some kind of loop that we're gonna do, or some kind of squiggly line, or some kind of crazy trace. It's like, no, it's gonna be like probably 100-mile radius of here. So figure it out. So we find out at dinner that we start in Fig, North Carolina, at the infamous Fig Tunnel. It's not too far off the Appalachian Trail. It's in northwest North Carolina. It's about Bristol was mile 50 to give you an idea.
Okay.
It was pretty much a straight shot to Bristol, kind of northwest to Bristol.
You were trying to get there as quickly as possible, apparently.
It seemed like it.
So yeah, that first day was a lot of hills, a lot of mountain, a lot of climbing. So it was me, Bob Hurd, and John Clark. Like the three of us just took off. And we were kind of flip-flopping most of that first day, but never really pushed the pace. I know it probably seemed like it looking at
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like looking back.
Looking at his on his Facebook and all that, and the updates that Laz was giving, it seemed like y'all were pushing the pace.
Yeah, I was gonna say we got to, what was it, mile 55 in 12 hours? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just running 100-miler, that's all.
So basically, I was trying to do like a relaxed 100 pace is what my goal was. Like, we're not going to push the tempo, the pace, just kind of, if I can do 100 miles a day when it's not super hot, we'll go with it. Or at least when I am moving kind of at that pace. So,
yeah.
I mean, did you feel like you was doing your thing, or did you feel like you three were just, hey, we're just going to kind of just flop back and forth and so forth like that, like you were a group?
We were doing our own thing. We just kind of like, if one of us made a stop, like we'd all just kind of see each other and pass each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that first night, I was going to say I was all right until about mile 75 or so. Just my body was not recovered.
Yeah.
Like we're talking less, like 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks off that 216 miles. I just couldn't regulate body temperature. I started getting like double vision, triple vision. And so I ended up, and I was running with Bob Hearn most of that night. And at about mile 80, I backed way off. Like I started like pretty much power hiking.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were like 17 hours in. So not, still a pretty good pace. About mile 90 is when it got really bad. I found like kind of this nice little deer bed to go sleep in. That was the worst idea I've ever had, actually. About 15 minutes later, like I took my pack off, used it to sleep on, like pretty much as a pillow.
Yep.
I see 8 eyeballs looking at me.
Oh.
It is 4 deer.
Oh, okay. At least it wasn't 4 raccoons.
No, but they were literally just huffing at me. Like, I could literally see steam blowing out of their nose. They literally kicked me out of their bed. So, basically, I just started kind of just doing the death march. I'm like, motels aren't going to be open for like 4 or 5 hours, and like the nearest town's like 10, 12 miles away or so. So I'm like, well, we're just going to just start walking. And it was a pretty hot morning, just exposed, just dead highway. Like, that feeling. It's just,
Yep.
It's like, yeah, it says 75 degrees outside, but if you take like a temperature gun, it's like 120.
Yep. Asphalt's awful.
Yep.
Just straight blacktop, not even just regular asphalt.
Yep.
So, was it finally get to like Greenville? I think it was. Go into this Walmart, and literally, I'm just leaning on this shopping cart, just pushing through, just throwing stuff in my cart, hoping to recover.
Is this where you almost got the police called on you?
Yes. Imagine how bad a shape you're in to get someone at Walmart to want to call 911 on you for like a wellness check.
Yeah, you must have looked pretty bad because I saw some of the people in the Walmart and.
So I grabbed a bunch of.
Mike went in there and bought underwear, socks, and KY jelly instead of getting called on us. So I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Were you just like out of it, wandering around Walmart?
Yeah, I had all that in the cart: water, like fruit, just anything to get like nutrition, hydration, like salt. I found like found a couple electrolyte things in there.
Mm-hmm.
So ended up booking a hotel about a half mile away, and then I realized, how am I going to get this to the hotel?
What'd you do? Push the cart down there?
I pushed the cart. So imagine me, pushing the shopping cart full of stuff, and I have like every third car just honking at me, yelling at me, like, "What are you doing?"
Oh my God!
I wave. I'm just like, "Have a nice day."
I didn't know any of this. This is good.
Oh,
did you park the grocery cart in like a parking spot at the hotel? Or?
Yeah.
I actually did. I did, like right in front of the door. Yeah.
Did you put your parking pass on it too?
No, they didn't make me do a parking pass, but what was it? I think I got in there at about 11 in the morning or so. All of a sudden, like, took a shower, drank a bunch of water. I wake up and it's like 10:30 at night.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
And I still have double vision. I'm just like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Mm.
So is that when you kind of just pulled the plug?
I called and I was just like, yeah, I think this is probably done. And they're just like, well, we're not going to get you till morning, and you have a hotel room, so it's like, just see if you can sleep it off. I'm like, okay. I don't think I woke up again until 7:30 in the morning.
I get to get sleeping.
Yeah, I was up. I got about like 17, 18 hours of sleep, and maybe was up 1 hour, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, I love the fact that when you drop out of Ball State, HOTS, or Third Circle, that you may or may not drop.
Yeah.
Because like in Ball State, this one guy dropped, and the van comes by, and she's like, "You look fine. You keep going," and just drove on by.
Literally right on by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they'll tell you, well, we probably won't get to you tomorrow evening, so you just go ahead and keep going. When we find you, we'll see how you're feeling.
Yeah, that's kind of what they did. They're just like, you realize that they're like, you still have another 36. You're still 36 hours ahead of cutoff, and I'm just like, my body's just done. Like, It was a mistake to stay in this, and I kind of knew going into it.
Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of miles on your body at that point.
Hey, you got to push the limits, though. You got to see what you can do.
I mean, are you going back for it again at any point? Is it on your list? Or are you like, yeah, not my...
So, I may last second sign up. I'm holding out for some Colorado lotteries. I would love to go back out there.
Well, Kyle, before we jump into questions, and I'll lead into this because it usually takes Matthew a little while to find this list that he loses every week. But you said you kind of got into running because you were 300 pounds, or you started exercising. What keeps you wanting to run at this point? Like I see that why you started, but you've taken it a step further now. You're coaching now, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started coaching about 3 months ago. Partnered up with Parity Path. They do a whole bunch of wellness and nutrition and spiritual guidance stuff. So I'm happy to be a part of that team and just kind of provide a better outlook. But right now, what motivates me is just kind of trying to find that limit. I think kind of like what we talked about is just, maybe this sounds really bad, but like I keep kind of going harder and faster because I'm trying to find things that challenge me and still scare me a little bit.
Is that why you run? I mean, is that
I run because it's just my way to tune out and be healthy. I just don't worry about the world too much, but in terms of why I compete, I guess that's why I compete. But yeah, I just that's the time pretty much dedicated to my mental health and being to myself. Is just I can just kind of reflect and meditate on what's going on and just kind of really use that to just try and better myself and find that clarity.
That's a great answer. Like it's always interesting to me to find out why everybody runs.
Mm-hmm.
Like what drives you, and I think some of us are drawn to the challenge. I think some of us are drawn to the mental health piece of it, like just having that time to yourself. So it's just interesting to me to hear all the different whys. I mean, you obviously have a passion for it because, you're originally driven by your weight and wanting to be healthy and exercise, but you don't get to where you're at unless you have a focus and a drive to either A, challenge yourself, or B, finding a purpose in something you need to do. And like you've taken it to a step further now. Like not only is it kind of like a part of who you are, but I mean, it's also becoming a part of your career, and so in order to do that, you have to have a very strong passion and belief in what you're doing. And I mean, I just want to say, from all three of us, I mean, we think what you've done over the last 2 or 3 years, it's tremendous, and we're super proud of you, and it's impressive. And we hope you have a real long career, and we'll be following you all next year too. I mean, I'm hoping we'll see you at some more races here soon.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll definitely see you guys at some races, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably in January.
Yeah, well, most of the team will be mad.
There we go. I was going to say, if there's any, honestly, I will put this out there. If there's any backyard ultra where someone's going to put up a huge number randomly, I think Camp Jordan's probably one of the best ones.
Yeah.
That's where my first 100-mile backyard came.
Yeah, especially for people looking for their first 100-miler. It's a backyard format's pretty good to do that.
Yeah, it really forces the pacing, and I think it's changing the way that 100-milers are being ran.
It definitely helps you ease into it a much better way as opposed to signing up for the Pinhoti or something like that and trying to figure it out on your own. Whereas you sign up for a backyard, you get to eat every hour. When you got to be back. You come back to your base station or your home, where you're at, where you got people to take care of you, and you don't have to go 48 miles for you to see your crew.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's so strange, though, in watching the backyards in the last 3 to 4 years, though. When we first got into ultra running ourselves back almost 10 years ago, they were fairly new to some extent. The mileage wasn't that high. I kind of, if you was new getting into it now, you're like, geez, why are these guys going 300 miles now to, just to win something? But it's become the bar just keeps getting raised and raised. I mean, you take Elsie, the mileage just keeps going up every single year, and it's great that that's it. But, we learn so much about our bodies when you do it once or twice. You're like, okay, I'm gonna fix that next time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, Matt, take us away, sir.
All right, I've got questions from Instagram and then some that I threw in here personally. Why did you move to Tennessee?
Yeah, so I moved to Tennessee. Basically, happened during COVID for work. So, the job I had, like the entire department got shut down, and so I visited Chattanooga once. It was like really high on my list and place I wanted to go, and was lucky enough to land here when I was job hunting, and knew some people that could help me out when I first moved here, and just incredibly grateful that it's worked out the way it has, and couldn't imagine not being here now.
Cool. What is the Kalbus route?
Oh, all right. So I work near the base of Lookout Mountain, and there's this route called the Bird, and you start kind of on the south side of Chattanooga in this town called St. Elmo. I've developed a variation. Instead of kind of starting downtown, I start from my work, and it's this trail that goes up the Far Enough Trail to the Miller Way Trail, up the Guild to Sunset Rock and back down. It's about 8 miles and about 1,500 feet of elevation.
Do you cross train, and if you do, what do you do?
I do some cross training, not too much. That's something I'm going to work on here in 2024, is try and do more strength and core. But right now, I'm focusing on flexibility and mobility, just trying to stay loose and dynamic. Kind of learning if, the more I'm able to do kind of that sideways and lateral movement, the less I get my body out of position, and the more I'm able to prevent injuries and falls, and really getting in those awkward positions on those rocky, rooty trails.
Mm-hmm.
What race format do you like the best?
That's a really good question. I would say
Hots. He likes hots the best.
He likes to be dropped off and say, go. No distance until that morning, and just go.
There's a lot I like about that, and I will go back someday. The backyard, the last minute runner format standing, just go until you break. I think there's so much unknown that goes into that. I think, if you're talking like, if I want to go run fast and run hard, like 50 miles or 50Ks to 50 miles are fun.
Mm-hmm.
100 miles kind of take a little finesse, but like I'm an engineer, so I naturally like to think and tinker a lot, and just kind of, I'm always kind of present, thinking about what's going on or what to do next. And even, when I don't have crew with me, I still find myself able to adapt well to those situations. And so definitely just kind of being able to find, myself and get comfortable in a race without having to run super hard.
Okay. How many miles do you average a week?
I average anywhere from about 70 to 80 typically in a week. I focus more on time, actually, so it's anywhere from about, I would say, 13 to 20 hours a week. And that'll be if I'm working on speed, endurance, hills. So that's probably a more accurate indicator, but in general, it's somewhere around 70 to 80 miles.
What is your favorite race that you've done?
Hot.
Really good.
It's going to be hot.
Hot is actually really up there. For 18 hours, it was an absolute blast. I would say, right now, I would say it's toss up between like Little Dog and like LC right now. Getting to run in Laz's backyard, you can't beat that.
And what is the hardest race you've done?
Hots. It's gonna be hot.
Hots.
I'm gonna get one of these right here in a minute.
It's absolutely hot. Oh my! There is so much like you don't know going in. Like even I would say even being a virgin, like I probably had access to more resources and more people than most virgins get to. Just because I did have some results, and so I could reach out to a lot of the veterans, and there's just nothing that gets you prepared for that mindset and that having to trudge through hours and hours of suck.
Oh yeah. So you've done East Coast and West Coast races. How do they compare?
I think East Coast is more technical. And sometimes like you won't see the the vert per mile, but like in terms of the time, the effort, and exerted, they're very comparable. The one West Coast race I did in High Lonesome last summer, even the steeper grades were a lot more runnable. It was a lot more of that, like, I would say, like, it's kind of like the firm clay you get out here sometimes, that like red clay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a lot more firm footing, kind of somewhere in between, the road and the trails here. It's a lot more predictable. So you're able to be more aggressive and, be faster, compared to, the Tennessee trails.
Would you rather run in the cold or the heat?
I was going to say, I think the cold's just easier to deal with. I prefer the heat, but I just had to learn how to layer up so I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just do that just because I think it's easier to put on clothes than it is to just have to keep up with the salt, hydration, electrolytes when it's those super hot blazing days.
Are you going to the Boston Marathon in 2024?
Yes, I cannot wait. So I qualified by 5 seconds this year.
So tell me
You
the
also
story.
qualified right after finishing LC.
Yes, I say tell me the story of the 2 weeks during this period.
Yeah. So I think I would say from MAD to when I qualified, I think that was just there's about 5 races in about 7 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks there.
There was a lot.
But yeah, the week after winning LC, I signed up for marathon. A friend gave me like the code. I was just like, Boston Marathon was like a bucket list thing, and I was just like, I felt good, had some speed. I was just like, let's just see where I'm at as kind of like a baseline.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of knew where I wanted to be at the halfway mark, and I was about 15 seconds behind. I think I did like 1:28.45 at the halfway mark. So I knew I was going to have to pretty much redline, and I was pretty much just like, well, if I blow up, I'd just blow up.
Yeah.
I'm going to go sub 3. And kind of like the end of Pinhoti, I don't remember a thing.
Well, I do remember yelling at you about halfway through, and you were not happy.
That was the last thing I remember is like you yelling at me. Like I was at the point where it was like, it's go time. Like, because I had no room for error.
Yeah, I could tell you were digging in the pain cave, like you were still holding pace, but you were not happy. You were not happy.
Hey, holding 6s for a long time is hard. It's not easy. Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah.
Like you do a long ultra, and eventually it all starts hurting.
Yeah.
But you start doing holding 6 minutes or 5 minutes for some people. So, it hurts pretty within the first couple of miles. It starts hurting, and then you got to hold that for 24 more miles.
Yeah. I'm learning because I'm gonna try and do sub 3 for Boston. The marathon is like my least favorite distance right now.
Well, I've told that's like the wrong thing to do at Boston, Kyle. Everybody says you should run slow and enjoy it because it's like a party.
If I'm deciding, and I'll know this ahead of time, that this is gonna be my one and only Boston, I'm just gonna enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one thing I remember, I think I had friends of mine take pictures of me at like mile 21, and I just look pale white, like going around this corner. And there's two friends of mine that were with me. We're all like basically fighting the 3-hour pacer, which Chattanooga, like that's like 1,200 feet of elevation. Like this is not a flat marathon.
Mm-hmm. Are you going back this year?
What do you say?
Are you going back this year?
To that, no, probably not. That's the week after Elsie. It's just I'm gonna try and cut back a little bit.
Oh, really?
I've heard that before too.
I would not think that at all. Looking at your Ultra sign up list that you've already signed up for next year.
You got 9 signed up so far.
Yeah, I mean he's doing a race in December, 2 races in January, 2 races in February, 2 races in March. I don't see that yet.
And that's not even the second half yet. I mean, what he got?
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm not really good at listening to my own advice.
He's got the first like 4 months up here.
Well, I will say there's a gap in April.
Well, yeah.
There's nothing in April yet.
Well, that's because everybody, he's going to see how he feels, and then he's got the other 20 in the second half.
Yeah. There is going to be no ultra in April. Yeah, I was going to say that's reserved for Boston. So.
Oh, there you go.
Cool. Yeah. Well, see, there's 10. 10 so far, not 9. 10. Well, that's all the questions I have.
Well, and you touched on this just a little bit, but we always try to end this podcast with this question, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but we'll end it with this regardless because I want to hear a little bit more. But at the end of the day, when things are hard and the race isn't going right and nothing's working, why do you continue to go? Why do you run?
I mean, I continue to run because it's the easiest thing to do is just is to quit, and unfortunately, like, you don't learn anything about yourself. And the perspective of instead of saying I don't want to do this race, like these trail races that we get to do, especially out here, like in Tennessee, North Georgia, Alabama, like there are some of the most scenic views and the best places to run. Like these remote areas, like we get to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've gotten to see views I never and get to go to places I never thought like I would ever see or ever have an interest. But like, and those are the stuff like I don't even share. Like that's just my personal memory bank because it's like pictures just don't do this justice.
Right.
Agreed.
And but I love what you said. You don't learn anything about yourself if you just quit. And a lot of us have just quit before when things have gotten hard or when we're in a race. We've all been there. And you don't learn anything. The only thing you learn with that is the next day you're going to regret it.
Yeah.
So I love that answer. I think there's a lot of truth in what you said. Like if you keep going, you push yourself to go on, you're going to learn that you're tougher and more capable than you are. That, one bad 5 minutes or 20 minutes in a race doesn't mean the next 20 miles are going to be bad. And for us that we give up or we call it short, we don't learn that. And you keep pushing the boundary of that. I mean, look at what you've done over the last few years from the first LC of 36 miles to you ran over 200 miles at Capitol. You're going to continue to learn about yourself. And I love that answer.
Thank you guys. It's guys like you. Like the first time I did LC, like I found myself looking up to you, David. I really did. Like I was just like, that's like, if I ever make something of myself, I'm like, this is how I want to, this is the type of person I want to be like. And this type of person in the community.
Oh, well, thank you, Kyle. That means a lot, man. I think the one thing we can always do for each other is be kind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we all line up at that race, it doesn't matter who's the best runner. Doesn't matter who's the worst runner. Doesn't matter who's the best runner. What matters is how you treat people out there on the course.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you're going to be remembered for. Whether you're having a good day or bad day, that stuff, you know, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. What matters is, did you give your all, like your best that day? And were you kind to people? You know, are they going to remember you for the way you treated them in a good way or bad way? And that's how I try to walk away from every race. I want people to know that I'm there for them. You know, like, even though we're racing, we want to help each other. I mean, that's why this community is so amazing. And it's why we started East Coast Adventures. Like, we want to see people succeed. And that's why, regardless of, you know, what we're doing, like, we promote other people's races, other race directors' races, because this community is just amazing. And the more you can experience of it, the better off you're going to be. The more people you're going to beat. I mean, you see this as well. I mean, the community just continues to grow, Kyle, as you run more races and meet more people. I mean, people are just awesome in this community.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most supportive and encouraging communities, because it takes a lot of effort to, you know, and a lot of resolve and dedication to go these extremely long distances and long times. And it's a rare quality to find that in people. And so I think that's what brings all of us really close.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well said, sir. Well said. Well, Kyle, with that, man, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We hope to have you on here next year talking about how you won Capital Backyard Ultra, because we'll definitely be following you along. But we'll see you very soon at MAD, sir.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Love talking to you.
You
Thanks,
too, Kyle.
See you, Kyle.